The other reason is if we discussed the vulnerabilities, somebody may be able to find a way to defeat our system that we hadn't thought about. And either way, society can suffer. So we just need to be very, very careful that we don't do something really dumb in the name of science or any other name. You know, we need to think about how we serve society, and our service to society is more important than what kind of name we make for ourselves, for example.
How does it endanger people to say that explosives were the cause if explosives were not the cause, which was what he was arguing? So his logic just made no sense, but he used that very persuasively. Fire is the official story. That's the gist of it. And all the terrorists know that. And so if the official story is true, then the official story is what's endangering people, because they're saying that fire can result in collapse of building and loss of lives. Whereas my hypothesis is that fire can't do that. So anyway, he also then, after the threats didn't work, he offered some bribes, and he gave me 2 ideas for grants that he said he could almost promise would be funded by Homeland Security. Anyway, I wasn't interested in his bribe offers. Both of them had to do with fires being the causative agent for the collapse of the buildings, and I would have to change research directions. He made that clear. And then I get all this money. Not attractive to me at all. Oh my. He also said, I have learned to appreciate the value of silence, even in the face of superior data. So he admitted my data was pretty good after some discussion. But he said, still, I've learned to appreciate the value of silence.
You're watching ABC 4 News at 5, close to home.
Good evening, everyone. A BYU professor is under investigation by the university for his controversial and some say flat-out crazy theories about the attacks on the World Trade Center 5 years ago.
Dr. Stephen Jones is on paid administrative leave for what BYU officials call increasingly inflammatory accusations.
I was put on administrative leave, which indeed was painful. And a little bit surprising, I must say. So, I mean, there wasn't much said to me.
Brian, why is BYU taking action against his statements?
For a couple of reasons, Mark. First, what Jones has said, and second, what the university suspects he has not done with his research.
We are concerned about the increasing number of accusatory and speculative comments being made by Dr. Jones regarding the collapse of the World Trade Center. And the second involves a concern that Dr. Jones' work on this topic has not been published in an appropriate scientific venue.
Dr. Jones has been at the BYU Department of Physics for 21 years. His office is right around the corner here. He still has lab privileges. He's still getting paid, but for now at least, he can't teach.
I do regret that when they did this, they did not inform me so that, you know, maybe let me teach a couple more classes. Or I could never understand why I couldn't teach. It didn't make sense to me. I mean, I was teaching physics, you know, what could be wrong with that? But anyway, so it was. And
what was your reaction when he was placed on paid leave?
You know, I thought that was interesting that they would take that step. But, I mean, I guess that says as much about the administration at BYU as it does about him. Evidently, there are some people that have influence over them, and there wasn't much that he could do about it. There's a certain religious aspect to that as well, because the LDS Church basically owns and doesn't, I guess, directly operate it, but, you know, they appoint the board of directors and those who do operate the university. a lot of people tend to think of them, or any decision that they make, as some sort of thing directed by God. And if anything, you know, that may have caused more concern and disruption in the family than the actual financial aspects and other things.
To what degree does the university believe Dr. Jones may be casting an unfavorable light on the LDS Church?
It is concern whenever the professor brings the university into their personal concerns.
I don't think, you know, God really had anything to do with it. They're just people. They were influenced by other people, and no one knows exactly what those pressures were, but they made a decision and did it.
So he's being investigated by the university. What exactly are they looking for?
Well, when you get to say things, when you get to be a professor, you have to back your theories up with peer-reviewed papers. So what they want to do is they want to go back through the papers and see if there is some scientific evidence behind them, if there are others in his field that say, yes, indeed, these are true.
And if not,
All of my papers on 9/11 have been thoroughly peer-reviewed. I wouldn't have it any other way. I requested a further review. This is in the media. I wanted that. And unfortunately, that did not come through. I am glad that in the physics class that very day when I was informed, I had had an opportunity. As I look back, I just felt like telling the students some of the things of my heart and my broader interest and experience. Not 9/11 particularly, but my sense of love and concern for the students, which is unusual except on maybe the last day of class. Turned out it was my last class.
A Brigham Young University professor known for his theory about the 9/11 terror attacks is now leaving the school.
The BYU professor suspended for his beliefs about the 9/11 attacks has announced his retirement. In a statement, Dr. Jones said, "I am electing to retire so that I can spend more time speaking and conducting research of my choosing. I appreciate the wonderful opportunity I've had to teach and serve and do research at BYU for more than 21 years.
It was a very difficult decision. And I'm not even sure it was, you know, the best decision, but the way I look at it is the folks at the university have a certain stewardship. And I have a stewardship for pursuing truth scientifically is the primary method, using the scientific method, experiments and analysis. So I wanted to pursue that with regard to 9/11, and I couldn't see why I shouldn't, nor did anyone explain to me why I shouldn't.
With Dr. Jones' resignation, BYU is dropping its review of his statements. Jones says he will continue with research of his own choosing and says after thorough study and reflection, he judges the Iraq War as a war of aggression founded on what he calls deception.
When I was placed on administrative leave, of course that was very shocking, but I decided that I really wanted to get to the bottom of this, about what happened on 9/11. I wasn't about to give up. It occurred to me that if we looked in the World Trade Center dust, that we should be able to see some residue from the explosive. We saw those clouds of dust formed as the buildings came down. In my first paper, I requested samples of the dust that was generated. If we could just get a sample collected on the day of 9/11, before there had been any cleanup, then we could rule out these arguments that, oh, your dust is just contaminated because of the cleanup.
On the morning of September 11th, I was heading to the Brooklyn Bridge. I proceeded